Good morning, Andrea, and good morning, everybody who's listening to the Insights interview from the Emerging Payments Association. This is a series of monthly short snippets of pithy, punchy input from some of the payments professionals who lead our industry, and who better to start but for the very first of these, but the chair of the EPA, an old friend and a big fan and supporter of our community, Andrea Dunlop. Andrea, great to have you here.
Great to be here, and I've got my glass of drink to celebrate, and looking forward to the interview.
Perfect, thank you. So let's start right at the very beginning. Everybody who knows you knows that you're a driven person. What is it in your past or your present that really motivates you, that gets you so driven?
Wow, that's a bit of a Freudian question. Are you sure it's drive and they don't use the word that I'm mad?
Well, there's a bit of that. I think it's true as well.
Bit of that. So I think to be honest, a lot of it does stem back, like many of us, to my childhood. So I didn't have the easiest of circumstances, and from a young age, I had to fend for myself. And at age 17, I went into the military, and I think that start in life really drove me. It really fueled, I guess, my early years and my ambition, and gave me a lot of focus. And I think the military just enhanced that, if I'm honest. The level of detail and focus that I get into, I think, comes from my days in the military. But I think it's probably fair to say that in recent years, my drive has changed, and I guess being part of the EPA has actually helped some of that change, and has helped me mature, I would like to think, as a leader. And I think that it's made me focus a little bit more on recognizing that I've been extremely fortunate in life, and being part of a community and wanting to give back has become something that's become much more important to me, over the last few years, and something that I focus a lot more on now than maybe I did in my early years. So I think your energy and the channels that you have of where you focus yourself, I do think they change as you get older. And I do think it's fair to say I'm not a woman who likes to faff around. I won't swear online on this webcam, but I do like to get stuff done. But definitely my focus is, there's no doubt they've changed, and I think that's part and parcel from working with you guys at the EPA. I do feel very privileged for the situation that I'm in. So hopefully that answers it.
No, it certainly does very well. And in fact, you have been leading the EPA as a chair for the last 3 years. What changes have you seen in the community over the last 3 years? And in payments more generally?
Yeah, I think from an EPA perspective, we've completely transformed, I think, as an EPA community. Our membership has grown. I think when we start to look at the breadth of the players that we have as part of our community, is so much more diverse now than it was when we first started working together. But I think other things, when I think back over the last few years of working with you and the advisory board, and all the great members that are part of the EPA, there are some things that I think we really made a difference. And good examples to me would be, when we started Women in Payments. Remember that first event at that really nice it was a Spanish restaurant, and we all got up and spoke. We weren't quite sure what it was we were doing. But when I think of that, I think that we pretty much trailblazed in that area. We came out, we recognised that there weren't as many opportunities for women. There weren't as many platforms for women to talk about industry aspects. And we kicked off our first women diversity kind of program and project within the EPA. So I'm super proud of the work that we did there. But also, one of the other areas that really stands out to me was the development of hot topics. So again, if you look back for a number of years, we weren't doing those types of events. And the one that really stands out to me that I think was the game changer on hot topics, and I hate to mention the word Brexit, but was passport to the regulator. For
Yeah,
me,
that's true. Yeah, I remember
Hard
that.
Rock Regulator was a real game changer on hot topics. We did an amazing job, and I actually still, even though that document's not, completely up to date, I still refer to that, and I still actually give that to people when we're talking about Brexit and the
Mm,
implications, and when they're looking at other countries. It's still a great resource to be used. So I think there are things that we did that I think definitely made a difference to the community, and hot topics now are are a really key part of the EPA, and they're really well supported. So I think that was a game changer. I think also the early years with Rich Wagner
yes.
and Mike Smith from what was Rayfuls,
Mm,
when we started the banking access lobbying on the challenges that many fintechs face on getting access to bank accounts. I think they were all really important, steps that we took on raising some of the challenges that the industry face. And I think that's something that we do well at the EPA. We provide a voice, I think, to companies when sometimes it's very hard for you. And I know this myself, when you're running a business, when you're also running a regulated business, it can be very difficult to raise certain concerns in a public domain. And I think the EPA gives that voice to members. And we raise the profile of some of the issues. So I think that the changes for us on the EPA, I think, have been massive in the last few years. But I don't know if you wanted to talk about industry in general,
well,
because the
yes,
thing.
I mean, I know the audience will be curious on your insights on, maybe the top couple of changes you've seen, and then also let's talk about what are the three most exciting opportunities for payment companies that you see in the marketplace right now.
Yeah, so I think when I look at the things that have changed in the industry, I think one of the really noticeable aspects is a completely focus on the consumer and impacts to the consumer, and that's really come about in the last few years, really driven by the regulator, but also I think driven a little bit from the new fintechs that have entered the industry, because they've been able to identify gaps that weren't provided by the traditional players, and they've brought products to the market that have actually improved solutions to consumers. So I definitely think the consumer aspect has been a really big piece for the industry, but equally PSD2 and open banking kind of feeds into that. We're starting to see really only now. I know the legislation came in it must have been January 2018. But we're starting to see, the foundations and the early steps of some of the new businesses that are coming through utilizing open banking, which again, in my view, I think will have a massive, impact for consumers and improving the experience for consumers, which I think is really important. But equally, I guess one of the other things that's really interesting is the fact that the fintechs have come in and have really started to provide these great solutions where I guess previously many felt that the banks weren't providing. The banks have upped their game. And I do think, I think the banks have really turned a corner and are really improving their services. And in some of the banks' cases, I actually think they're quite comparable to actually what some of the fintechs provide. So I won't name the bank news online here for everyone, but I have to tell you, I switched bank accounts to, one of the, what I would say would be one of the traditional banks. And honestly, I've been blown away by the service and some of the new products that they've brought in. So I think there's definitely a turning point that, the legacy banks are not what they were a few years ago. They have definitely moved forward. And, is that off the back of the fintechs raising the game? Who knows? I would say so.
I imagine so, snapping at their heels a little bit, but also potentially working more closely with the fintechs and being able to partner with people to allow them to give better services to their customers.
Exactly. So I think there's much more of a collaborative aspect going on in the industry now than maybe we've had previously. So I think there are a lot of positives. I think the other thing that's really noticeable now, and we've benefited off this from an EPA perspective, is the fact that the regulator themselves recognise the importance of payments and established a proper payments team. that actually supervise the payments industry. And again, I think that is such a positive step from the regulator. You and I both have, regular catch-ups, with our regulator here in the UK. And I definitely think having that level of expertise in the FCA has made a huge difference. So again, I think that goes to show how important payments has become when the regulator has focused a dedicated team. So, I mean, to me, they're kind of, without talking about the obvious ones like Brexit, COVID, and other challenges that we face in the industry, for me, they're kind of, been the big game changers that I've seen.
So you are a game changer. You're the one who helps to raise the bar for everyone, and you've got some big ambitions ahead. I know you've got a couple of new roles and new things you're embarking on. Well, can you tell us about one or two of them?
Yes, so you already know Martha and Nadia from European Women in Payments. So two amazing entrepreneurs in their own right. I think all of us, as we've been going through our journey on some of the diversity programs that we've all been working on across the industry, I think we've moved to the next stage where we recognise that for many female entrepreneurs, funding is still an issue. So for the last year, we've been kind of working on ideas on what we could do. And we launched a few months back an initiative called Invest Fem, and it's a not-for-profit to help matchmake female entrepreneurs and investors together so that we start to break down the barriers that many female entrepreneurs find themselves in as they try to raise money for their businesses. So, it's an exciting opportunity. We're focused on this globally, and I'm working with another amazing group of, trailblazing women, in my view, that are looking to make a huge difference for the industry.
I've got to say, I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah.
And you know what? It'll absolutely open doors and open opportunities. And I love this this idea of social capital as a thing that represents the output of volunteering. And I look at the amount of volunteering that's done by you and by European Women in Payments Network and others to help to move the bar on these very, very important things. I think it's brilliant, really commendable. And so finally, the final question really is, you've got two teenagers in your family. What would you say to anyone considering a career in payments?
Oh, God. Well, God, if you think back to actually when you and I started out, can you remember that the job of the past in payments was kind of moving cash and checks to electronic? And now we're kind of in a whole different world. And I think that, that payments is only going to become more fun, more innovative, and probably a little bit more challenging as well. But I think there's so many opportunities for youngsters who want to come into payments. So, and I think there are many different tracks that you can take. But I do wonder whether we're going to move more into the whole Internet of Things and the whole sharing aspect of community. I wonder if that will become stronger and stronger. When I think about payments and collaboration, I kind of see that as the next evolution of where we're going. But God, in the time of our careers, who would think that this amount of change had happened? That we go from that world to the kind of the contactless world, and we're kind of knocking on the door of cashless. So, my concerns around this, but the change is coming quickly, for definite, in this area. So there's no shortage of opportunities. So I think for youngsters coming in, it's an amazing career. It served me well, and it serves many of us in the industry very, very well.
Brilliant. Final question. You're soon to come to the end of your tenure as a chair of the EPA. The industry and individuals and companies have all benefited. You have a new chair coming in.
Yeah.
What is the top tip you would give them before they join to ensure that they make the most of their time as the chair of the EPA for the next 3 years?
Yeah, so I think one of the great things that we have is our governance structure. So I really think it's great that we bring in fresh talent with a fresh pair of eyes, to look at, where we've been, where we're going, and take a different perspective on it. So to me, I think that's the bit that makes us very successful at the EPA. But what I would say is the community of the EPA is very diverse. And I think what suits one member doesn't necessarily suit another. And I think this is the challenge that you and I, have kind of navigated over the last 3 years, is trying to maintain that balance, for all members within the community. And that is a really hard thing to achieve. I'm sure at times, maybe, people may feel we may not have got it right, but our intentions, have always been to do the right thing for the community. And I think that's probably my main steer to the new chair coming in. It's balancing the needs of the entire community and not just the few. So, that's probably my major tip. Other than that, someone taking us in a new direction, and injecting, new life and bringing in new people, I think, is always really welcome in a community like this. And obviously, I'm not really going anywhere. I'm always going to be part of. Never going anywhere. Jesus, Tony. You and I have been together. You and I are nearly married, for God's sake.
Yeah, that is certainly true.
We are. We're nearly like a very weird married couple.
His and hers. Well, I tell you what, though, I certainly couldn't be doing what I do without you, and the community couldn't be benefiting if it wasn't for being without you. So I'm glad you're not going anywhere. Thank you. I feel as if, although I know you well, I feel this has given you a chance to share a little bit more about yourself to the rest of the community. You're standing there with a glass, so am I. Let's drink it to the last 3 years, and certainly to the next 3. Here's to it.
Yeah, exactly. Congratulations, Tony. And I'm really proud of the work that we've done. And I look forward to the next few years and what the EPA is going to do next. So it's been an amazing journey. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you.